Mickey Hart here. You're listening to the GAA Hour Football Show.
The GAA Hour with Colm Parkinson is brought to you by Paddy Power, home of the Money Back Special.
I'm not finished yet. It took me a long time to get here.
Both players have spoken with each other, and they regret what happened. They've had a frank discussion with each other, and both of them are keen to now focus on getting back their county jerseys.
That these fellas will get such a shell shock next Saturday evening that we'll put them back in their asses for 10 years.
It's just me and you today, Conor. Colin's off swanning around the place. I don't know where he's gone. And wait till you hear this. I asked Johnny Doyle last night to come in and join us, or yesterday, and he said, yeah, no problem. And then I texted him last night, everything all right for today, and he says, I'm on the way to hospital. He got a punch off the ball in a league game for his club, and he thinks his jaw is broken.
Who would punch Johnny Doyle?
Exactly. Johnny Doyle's 41 now. He's playing a club league game, and this is off the ball.
Oh my gosh.
Some absolute so-and-so decides to strike him off the ball. I think when you get into your 40s, you reach a level of respect in the county where why would someone want to do that to you?
Johnny Doyle.
Johnny Doyle is universally liked, so it sickened me to my stomach to hear that he was on the way.
Did he say he broke his jaw?
He thinks he thought it was broken. He was on the way to Tala Hospital to get an X-ray. So that's just. I said I'd share that news with people.
Gosh.
I'd love to know who that fella he was marking was, because I'd have no problem tweeting out his name. Because that's just complete disgrace.
Yeah, hopefully Johnny's all right then.
Yeah. Anyways, you're off to Limerick on Saturday night. I'm going to Limerick on Saturday night. But the big question is, why the hell is it in Limerick? What's going on here? Such a load of nonsense to bring the two teams to Limerick. Apparently, there's no agreement between the two counties to toss for home advantage. Now, there was no other Connacht venue suitable. The Hyde has only 17,000. We know how many Mayo will bring to this. They reckon, Jesus, still 17,000. I would have gone to the Hyde.
Yeah.
Both counties were consulted and agreed to the Limerick venue. Now, what I can't understand is the stats in the last 20 championship games. Both teams have won 10 each, right? Both teams have won 5 at home and 5 away. Just toss for the bloody thing. Mayo aren't great in Castlebar. It's not like Galway is a fortress in Salt Hill, although they might have a slight.
I know, yeah.
What's wrong with tossing it, or did they even?
I heard, I could be wrong, but I heard that that Mayo didn't agree to the coin toss. They didn't want the coin toss. And
right.
I don't know where they're coming from. I suppose that our record in McHale Park is so terrible, where our record in Salt Hill against Galway recently isn't much better. So I'd say that's something to do with it. But like you mentioned the Hyde there. The Hyde, I think, takes 18,000, is it something like that? I actually don't think it'll be much more than 18,000 in the Gaelic grounds.
Galway won't travel too much.
And the last game, when Mayo played Galway last year, and that was like one of the biggest, most anticipated Mayo Galway games in a long time, and that was at McHale Park. There was 29,000, I think, at it, and that was in Castlebar, which is easier.
In a Connacht Championship.
In a Connacht Championship show, so that obviously it's easier for Mayo, but it was easier for Galway to travel to Castlebar as opposed to Limerick, and that got 29,000. So I would say around the 20,000 mark. But that's the thing, like if you played it in the Hyde and there were people complaining about not being able to get in, then the GA would say, well, we offered you Limerick or something. So that's probably why. But I just hope Mayo played Limerick there last year, obviously played Kerry famously a few years ago. I just hope the venue will
play Cork there.
Played Cork as well. Yeah. So we're kind of
and played Limerick there too.
Limerick last year was at that game. Yeah.
No wonder James Horan didn't agree to it. If Limerick was on the cards. They do have an advantage there because Galway wouldn't have played there, and it's an unusual sort of pitch I found to play football in. It's more of a hurling pitch.
Yeah. I was there last year. Like the sod, it's pristine. It was like an absolutely brilliant pitch. So, and similar in parameters, I imagine Crow Park would be definitely better than pitch wise McHale Park and Salt Hill. So, just fingers crossed it helps Mayo the next day.
So we haven't mentioned this either. This came out on Saturday, and obviously you can't mention some things on a Monday because there's too much to talk about. It was Eamon Fitzmaurice on Mayo. So he's talking about the dark arts that Mayo get up to, and he was talking about, and fair play to Eamon Fitzmaurice for coming out. He's coming out with a few good ones, and the Irish Examiner are very lucky to have him with some of these ones he's coming out with. So he talked about the checking off the ball, their game management late in games, the claustrophobic marking of key opposition players, the tactical use of the Mayor Fuerna, and the cynical exploitation of the head injury rule when ahead in games were further indicators of the gamesmanship as they pushed everyone and everything in their desperation to get to the promised land. So let's go through each one. The checking off the ball, they're all at it.
Everyone,
right?
yeah.
We know Mayo got a hard edge to them, there's no doubt. Dublin have it too. Their game management late in games. I'm not sure about that, considering like teams get runs on them late in
Their
games.
game management tactically is terrible lately. Late in games, it was terrible
Yeah.
against Armagh, but I think I know what he's talking about.
Like Killian O'Connor could go down with an injury or something. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So then the claustrophobic marking of key opposition players. Like, I mean, I see that as a plus.
Yeah.
I don't see that as anything. The tactical use of the Mayor Fuerna. We've talked about this before. So Dublin do this as well.
Yeah.
This is what Eamon Fitzmaurice spoke about the last time, with Jo coming in at times and being slow to come off.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good one. And the cynical exploitation of the head injury rule. What do you make of that one?
Well, I actually wasn't aware of this at all until it was mentioned in the Armagh game. And how many, you mentioned it on Monday, the amount of injuries that Mayo had in the last few minutes.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were suspected
injuries.
head injuries. And like, what's a ref to do when there's a suspected
Well,
head
that's
injury?
it.
He can't do anything. He can't, there's no evidence, like, do you
Well,
know?
here's the thing, and I didn't really notice this either until it was in the first half, and Brendan Donaghy went down on a ball and he got hit to the side. And he went down. Now, there was absolutely nothing wrong with his head. But Aidan Forker was shouting at the referee just off camera, head ref, head.
Yeah.
So I didn't realise they're at this. So the referee has to stop it then with the head injury. So
Yeah.
I hadn't noticed that they're pretending to have head injuries because the game will have to be stopped if that's the case.
Yeah, and actually the main head injury, that I can remember from Mayo was actually back in Limerick in 2014 when Killian O'Connor and Aidan O'Shea managed to collide heads
Well, they weren't
themselves.
faking that
I
one.
know they absolutely weren't faking that one. But I actually hadn't realised it until Eamon Fitzmaurice mentioned it. But I hadn't realised that, because he called out Tony McEntee. Said he used to be really slow to get off the pitch, especially when the opposition were trying to take a kick out.
Yeah.
And I hadn't mentioned that. I hadn't noticed that until Fitzmaurice said it. And actually, Fitzmaurice is brilliant for that and telling you stuff that you hadn't
You
noticed.
don't
like, you know.
notice, yeah. I didn't notice that, the Mayor Furnace either. But
On the Fitzmaurice one, sorry, he called out, he said that Dermot O'Connor hid behind a TV camera playing in Kerry in the league, and he hadn't spotted it until Barry John Kane was on the bench and he spotted Dermot O'Connor. The Mayo were taking a free. He was trying to hide and then run in once to be available once the free was taken, and Barry John Kane called it.
Well, that's clever. Like there's no doubt. But maybe that's why McGeaney said after the game against Armagh that there must have been 10 or 11 head injuries. Like, he's obviously exaggerating because Mayo are known for this.
Yeah.
So we're all getting to the bottom of this now.
Yeah.
So which is good. Right, we have to mention this as well, because this came out at the weekend, which is Central Council's championship restructures. Now, obviously, this is a bit of a confusing one, considering John Horan has set up a committee to look at this exact thing. And they're doing that this year with the aim of maybe looking at something for 2020. So it's very obvious that Horan is pushing this through. He chairs the Central Council, apparently, and he's pushing this through because he wants the legacy of bringing in the Tier 2.
Yeah.
Now, that's all fine and everything. There's obviously an ego thing involved with that. You want to be remembered for something. I can kind of understand it. But still, what are we going to do? Do this one Tier 2 for 1 year and then go change to something else? Maybe that's what we're going to do. But anyways, there's two proposals the Central Council have put forward. And I think there's going to be an emergency congress to push this through in November or something.
There's
Whatever.
another one in October, isn't there?
Yeah. Whenever the president wants something, there's just emergency congresses pop up out of nowhere. So Proposal A is basically the provincial championships as they are. And the current 4 rounds of the qualifiers will reduce to 2 rounds. The reason it'll be reducing to 2 rounds is because Division 3 and 4 teams won't go into the qualifiers if they lose in the provincial championships and don't make the provincial final. So that's pretty much it. So Division 3 and 4 teams, if they lose in the province, the 16 of them, unless they reach a provincial final, which is unusual, though Laois have done it recently, they'll go into a straight knockout in the Tier 2 championship format, right? So that's it. So the semi-final, the All-Ireland semi-finals of that Tier 2 would be a standalone weekend where there's no A tier or hurling or whatever. Maybe there's hurling, but there's definitely no A tier football, which is grand. There'll be All-Stars, there'll be whatever like that. And that's okay. It's normal. Proposal B is a bit of a weird one. I don't know why they even threw this in. So it's the same thing, except for if a team say like Laois makes a provincial final, then you're down to 15 teams. Then one of the lowest ranked Tier 1 team has to take their place back in in Division 2, which gets a little bit messy. You'd feel hard done by if you're a Tier 1 team and you're dragged back down into it because another team, whatever. And then it's even confusing with the teams go back into the Tier 2. The format for Tier 2 championship in Proposal B features an initial round of games, which then creates a winners group and a losers group. So offers beaten counties a way of playing their way back into contention. So you can
lose
lose
twice.
again in the tier 2. That's a load of nonsense as far as I'm concerned. You can live with the A. But, everything I always say about these tier 2 All-Irelands, and it's very, very important, and I think people are deciding on this that have never played the game and that don't understand it. Every team sets out at the start of the year to win a competition, right? So what's your goal for the year? It's to, even if it's not to win it. So Laois's goal this year will be to get to a Leinster final and play Dublin in it.
Yeah.
It's not going to be to win a tier 2 All-Ireland, because then you're admitting that you're going to lose in Leinster, which you absolutely don't want to do.
Yeah.
So what are you training for all year? You're not training for tier 2. So what is the prestige of it? What is the glory of it? Can you really celebrate a competition that was not on your radar until the middle of the season? Do you know what I mean? I do, this tier 2, for it to work, has to be what you're gearing for all year. This is what you're emotionally invested in. This is what you want to win. This is what your supporters are emotionally invested in.
So just split it at the start.
It has to be.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Stop trying to appease everybody. You ask any intermediate team in Laois, do you want to play senior? And they'll all say yes.
Yes, yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you can just because you want to, and
Yeah.
there's too much appeasing. So you can still play the provincials, as far as I'm concerned, as a standalone competition. But the 2 All-Ireland series are starting from scratch, and there's an A and there's a tier 1 and a tier 2, or a division 1 and a division 2. And I think that's very, very, because here's another example. And I've said this on the show before. When you're in the Leinster Championship and you lose, and then you have to go back into the qualifiers, that's an awful kick in the arse. So you're immediately back. And now this is the same competition that you're back into, and it takes you so long to refocus and get back and even have any interest in getting back into this. So that's the same tier 1 competition that it's really hard to regroup and everything. So you're talking about regrouping to go into a B championship that has not even been on your radar, has not been mentioned in one team meeting, has not, been on in anybody's minds. I just don't see how that can work.
I suppose the only thing is that everybody's going to be in the same boat, so they just have to react like that. But the way you mentioned it there is that the stronger teams that go into the tier 2 might actually perform more poorly, because they have, they're dead set on getting to a provincial final, whereas other teams might be a bit more realistic about the fact that they're going to be in tier 2, once they get knocked out of the province. But I completely agree with you. There's way too much appeasing going on. We're talking about every other competition apart from the senior championship has grades, and everybody's been comfortable for that for a long time. And yet the biggest, the flagship championship, they're afraid to do that because they're trying to keep everybody happy. And I'm always wary about kind of where I come from on this, because I'm playing my football in Mayo. Mayo are more than likely always going to be a top tier county, and you feel that you're talking down to other counties. But that's just it. And these proposals that are put forward, that's it. They're just appeasing. They're just nearly lip service, that kind of way. But
that's the thing. But you look at Laois won the Joe McDonagh Cup. Laois are Division 2 team now, so they would be in Tier 1, but I wouldn't care if Laois were in Tier 2 and they won it. The Laois hurlers came back, and you see videos of them going around to schools signing autographs, signing hurls. Didn't ever have a chance to do that. There's a great feel-good factor around Laois hurling now, and now we have a shot at Dublin next weekend. Who wouldn't want that?
I know.
I just don't get it. And sometimes instead of appeasing everyone, just do what's right. And then after a year, it'll all
it won't
be
take them long to get used to it.
It won't take them long. You'll have a couple of counties that were given out, and suddenly they're in an All-Ireland semi-final in Croke Park, and then all the whinging ends. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
There's some positive developments from John Horan. He was doing that media day. He's talking about over the weekend, GAA Central Council have moved the club finals away from St Patrick's Day. So that's very good. Central Council have done the right thing there. So they're now, the All-Ireland final is going to be January the 19th. The All-Ireland semi-finals January the 5th. So that big long wait is cut down massively. And John Horan's not happy with that. He said, we decided to move it forward, but unfortunately we weren't able to move it forward the full way, as provincial and county final programmes were already planned. So in 2020, they'll be hoping to complete them inside the calendar year. I love that.
Brilliant.
That makes perfect sense. So you have to, while you give out about the GAA with a lot of things, you have to credit them when they do the common sense thing. It's something I've been complaining about since I started in media, but eventually it gets kind of done. Another good one I thought was that the back pass rule to the goalkeeper is going to be added to the agenda for the special congress, which is scheduled in October. October, not November. That's the special one. So basically, the offensive mark, the sin bin, the 21-metre kick out, and the forward sideline kicks, they were trialled, as we know. So they're up for, they're on the agenda, obviously, to be voted on to come in for the league the following year. And they're they're going to add the back pass back to the goalkeeper. So again, to be honest, I'm 100% in agreement with this. So I think it was Stephen O'Mara that first mooted this one, and it's basically your short kick out goes to a corner back and it's thrown straight back to the goalkeeper. Everyone's paired off and the goalkeeper just kind of wanders out. Nobody's marking him. Like the only way really to push up successfully is to send your goalkeeper up as a spare man to cover the ball back to the goalkeeper. And nobody wants to get to the point where that's the case. So it just adds to the excitement of the game. When that kick out goes out, there is no conservative back pass, and even from play there's no conservative back pass. And again, this is probably might penalise my own county with Graham Brodie. I wonder what good often comes out of Brodie's runs. Like, I'm not sure a huge amount of good comes out of him. I can definitely see the 1-2 from kickouts is a massive thing, and it penalises a press, which we want every team to do. It penalises contests, and I don't see how this would be a bad thing for the game.
But there's been no definition yet on what the rule might be. That's what I'm kind of, because
I think these are up. I think these are up for debate potentially.
I was surprised at the level of opposition to this once it was like, you know, it was mooted earlier on the week.
Opposition for
everything.
I
know, but like even this one in particular, because I thought, like, when I heard it, I thought that's a fairly progressive rule, like, you know. But I suppose the opposition that I saw was that, like, does it mean the keepers can't get involved whatsoever, or is it just that, like, if a cornerback gets the ball, he actually can't pass the ball backwards to his goalkeeper? I think that's perfect. Say if the cornerback wasn't allowed to pass the ball back to the keeper within his 13-metre line, but that you're not preventing a Graham Brodie or a Niall Morgan from getting involved in the attacks. Now, how difficult that will be to police, it might be a bit tricky, but I think it's unless
it's a back pass to the goalkeeper. Well, if the goalkeeper's ahead of you, you can pass it to him.
It allows teams to press up, and it'll mean more long kickouts, because goalkeepers won't be given that short option as much if they know that they can't get it back from the player they're given to. Because often they give it to a cornerback that right on the sideline, and his only option is to go back to the keeper. So I think it's quite positive, but I'd like to see the actual definition of what the rule is going to be.
Yeah, me too. It said there's a stat here of the 20 games that are analysed for the National League, there was an average of 10 passes to the goalkeeper. So you don't want that in the game. Like they banned the goalkeeper picking it up in soccer because it was terribly boring, it was terribly conservative, and it was terrible to watch.
Made
and
a huge difference.
Huge difference to the game. So I don't see why it can't happen, but I agree with you. I think a back pass to the goalkeeper, you can't pass it back, like rugby, a back pass. Passes have to go backwards in rugby, so you can't pass back to the goalkeeper.
Yeah, but it doesn't apply, let's say if the keeper comes out, right, say he gets involved in the attack, and say a halfback is on the 45 and Graham Brodie's coming on the burst, you can give it back to him then. What I mean is, what they're trying to prevent, I think, is that exact one. When it's kicked out and then just given straight back.
But even from play, right? So you've got a corner back and he's in under a bit of pressure in the corner, and you've all manned up, man to man, and he just swings it across to the middle of the pitch where the goalkeeper's standing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You would prefer to see the corner back having to get out of that situation himself. So you're right. It's probably not a really easy one. To be honest with you, I think the pros outweigh the cons of the goalkeeper coming up anyways. Who can? Do you know what I mean? What's it really adding to the game anyways? There's enough players out the field. Like, I mean, you want the game to be progressive and move on. I don't think you're losing a lot.
No,
and
not
to be honest, there's only Niall Morgan, Graham Brodie really that's great, and Began that are anyway good or venture. Bregan doesn't usually
He won't be doing it after last year, I don't think.
So, like, after all this good of John Horan's interview, then he's back to being kind of the PR man for Dublin, and he just can't hide his colours when it comes down to Dublin. So talk about deflecting and not answering a question, and I really want to get John on the show. It's not going to be easy to get him on. I've asked him already and he politely turned down for now, but I'll definitely try and get him on because he needs to be tied down on this. So, he's talking yesterday about people are operating. He basically played dumb as the GAA president to the Dublin funding and how it all works. And this is an ex-Leinster Council chairman, and this is a GAA president that has been coming under serious heat now for maybe 2 years on this funding issues, and he's pretending he doesn't know how the whole thing works. Now, that's a disgrace from the GAA president. And again, we said it last week, he's treating people like idiots. And there's people out there who are not on top of these figures who are probably believing what he says, and he's deflecting this. So I want to pin him down on this. And I it was a round table thing that he got all these quotes for, so it wasn't easy for the journalists maybe to pin him down. But at the same time, I would like to have seen him being pulled up on a couple of things, because he says people are operating off global figures because Dublin's money goes from Croke Park, whereas most other counties in Leinster get their money from the province by going from Croke Park to the province. Like, I mean, like, that's true to a certain degree, but at the same time, it's so disproportionate at the national level from Croke Park. Like, to try and take the attention away from that huge disproportionate money by referencing some money that's not really that disproportionate at all. So we know the Leinster Council does give games development money to the other 11 counties. I think it was something like 5 million the total. Now it mightn't total that completely, which might be about 480 per county, but Dublin Coaching Project from the Leinster Council gets exactly 239,000, so it's about half of that. So Dublin are still getting it from the Leinster Council. And it's actually funny because John Horan was on top of all this, because I spoke with him when he was Leinster Council chairman on this very show and asked him why the Leinster Council had given Dublin 240,000 on top of the disproportionate money they already received. And here's what he said.
This East Leinster project is costing 500,000, and I brought that proposal to management in Croke Park and got it approved. And part of the funding,
I'd give you credit. I'd give you credit for that. I'd give you credit for that. But the 241.
Let me finish out.
All right.
Part of that 500,000 is being funded by taking 200,000 out of Dublin's coaching budget each year for the next 3 years. So Dublin are surrendering 200,000 to that 500,000, and there's been no big squabble, no big row about it or anything like that. And that to me is progress in terms of trying to redress the balance.
So now we're in 2019, and the annual accounts of the Leinster Council showed in 2018 Dublin got 239,000. So that 200,000 is still being given to them. See, this is what you're up against. Like, I mean, a lot of it is like that should be gone by now. If John Horan, now John Horan's not still the Leinster Council chairman, so he could argue if I still was, it would be, you know what I mean, it wouldn't be given. Yeah. But like, I mean, I just can't understand. Here's what John Horan says: I intend to get someone to just have a look at it and analyse it. When are you going to do that, John? Why haven't you done that already? And what are they going to show that is any different to what's out there already?
Yeah, but why deflect? That's the thing. Why not just, like, nobody would have a problem with him admitting that there's a massive gap in the finances between Dublin and the rest. But he seemed it's constant deflection, it's constant like excuses to try and justify the clear inequality between Dublin and the rest of the counties. Exactly, but why do that? Like, there'd be no problem if he just admitted it. And again, it's him thinking with his Dublin hat on and having to be a bit defensive. But I just like I intend to get someone to have a look at it, and you know, I know it seems like lip service to me, and that he hopes that it's going to go away, that like if I say something that people stop asking me about it. But the good thing is that people aren't going to stop asking about it. You know, it's firmly on the agenda.
And him saying I intend to get someone to have a look and analyse it, that's going to come back to bite him now, because he's going to have to be held to that now. When is this going to happen? When are you going to do an independent review? Because everybody says that not everybody, the numbers that are out there, he's saying are not showing the full picture. Show us the full picture then. And you can do completely show it and put this argument to bed. Like, and then he starts deflecting even worse. Said, well, I talked to Seamus Kenny and a Flanagan fella, and they told me that actually per head of population, Meath get more than Dublin. Now, an Egypt off Hill 16 that doesn't know much wouldn't come out with something like that. Because that's not good enough. So he's throwing that out. What this Flanagan lad said to him. Yeah. Like, nationally, as in this is gospel or whatever. So even if it was, this is the argument that everybody keeps talking about. If you want to talk of per head of population, right? Dublin have the population of a province, right? They have the funding of a province. So let's keep it head of population now. So you'll say, right, per head of population, they're getting less than Meath. So why are they only fielding one team if they have the population of a province and they have the funding of a province? So if you want to use head of population, you're losing your battle, because Dublin has to be split then, because then it's not fair having one team versus the same population similar with 11 teams. So you can't keep per head of population. You have to stay away from that if you're a dub. So if you want to talk about per registered club player, which is fair, because there's huge parts of Dublin that are soccer, huge parts that are rugby, etc., Then if you're going by registered club player, Dublin are destroying every other team, every other county. So what is it to be?
Maybe that's why he doesn't want to get into it too much, because if he does give a proper analysis of the figures, he won't be able to escape the fact that Dublin maybe have to split, or maybe other counties have to amalgamate or something like that. But it's the deflection. It's the deflection.
Yeah,
that's
and
the problem.
no, it's I don't mind the deflection. The playing dumb for a GAA president. And a GAA president and a former Leinster Council chairman say, well, I think the Leinster Council might give I'd have to look into it.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
And then Tom Ryan said last year, he said, this is on this very same subject, he said it's a tricky one, and it's one we've tried to give a fair bit of thought to over the course of the year. They're thinking about this all the time. Tom Ryan said to me on the show, he said it's not an easy one to get right. They understand this is a problem.
Yeah.
And even in that interview I spoke with John Horan, he admitted to me that the dominance in Leinster is a huge problem. He won't admit that it has anything to do with massive money that was pumped into Dublin. Why? Now, maybe the argument is, I don't want to take away from the achievements, and I can see that a little bit, because there is a lot of volunteer work.
Absolutely,
but how can you not link all this money to this complete domination of the All-Ireland and of Leinster?
Yeah.
It has to
Completely.
be linked.
Yeah.
It has to be linked.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, give me a break. Right, finish up on this one. Diarmuid Connolly obviously didn't get out to America. So this is very unfortunate for Diarmuid Connolly, and I'd say some weasel rang immigration and maybe tipped them off. Who knows what happened, because I know I got trouble getting out before. I dropped off the leash panel, and when I landed to immigration I was told to stand aside, and I was quizzed and searched, and I'd never been to America before. And I knew somebody had rang them up to tell them I was going, because obviously I'd left Laois and it was high profile. I just can't understand the mentality of somebody who would do that. I was only 19.
Yeah.
And they ended up finding the sanction in my pocket. That's how green I was. I had the transfer form in my pocket. But Connolly, right, so he didn't get out, and they said there were some visa issues. But the unfortunate thing for Connolly is it leaves him ineligible for football or hurling until the 27th of July, because the sanction had been signed or sanction had been granted. So, the last thing for him to do was to have headed out. Now, if this is somebody who's weaseled him out or squealed to immigration or told him watch him coming through, or I don't know. It doesn't make sense. He was out last year. Think of the money Diarmuid's after losing out on there now. It's just sickening to think that somebody could do that. And not only that, is he can't play for his club.
I know, yeah.
And not only that, which I think is the biggest thing for his own mental health and his own head, now he's stuck around Dublin watching Dublin potentially win 5 in a row. It's just wrong. If that's it's just lousy.
Yeah.
My heart goes out to Connolly that he couldn't just get out to Boston, enjoy the summer and get away from all that shit. Imagine him around Dublin now.
Of course, yeah.
I feel terribly sorry for him.
Is there not some protocol in place that because Diarmuid Connolly wasn't able to go to America, that he's his him being ineligible to play club football could be lifted or something like that? I don't
think so. I think it's signed. That's right. But in fairness, the Dublin Championship is called off during the summer, so he'll miss playing league games. And I think that's the least of his worries. The club, I think it's been stuck around Dublin.
Yeah.
He might go to London or something. I wouldn't be surprised. They're all heading to this new club in London. What is it called? There's another.
Do you have any contact to give phone numbers to?
Caelan Mooney's gone to this other club.
Neasden Gales
that Jamie Clark and Kinnair Harrison are at.
What a forward line. Caelan Mooney centre forward, the two lads inside.
Neasden Gales, I'd say Connolly's rang by them already.
Yeah.
Whatever, they must have some Abramovich after taking him over or something like that. But anyways, listen, we'll come back and we'll talk about the matches. Okay, the Galway versus Mayo match, Conor, is clearly the big one of the weekend. There's no doubt about that. Galway's league win this year was their 7th successive win over Mayo. That's an incredible statistic. This is Galway knocking Mayo off their perch, who had been unbeaten in the province, and then inflicting a complete and utter dominance over them. This isn't a Sligo or anything. This is Mayo that they've won consecutively, and they've done this through dropping deep, turning Mayo over, frustrating Mayo, and Mayo will break a line, get through Galway, and there's someone else they have to get to, and then there's somebody else, and there's about 3 different lines of defence. They're all around the 45 or behind it, and Mayo don't like breaking down a team like that.
Yeah, and I think that record that you're on about Mayo and Galway, I think that stretches to underage. I don't think Mayo have beaten Galway in any level in something like 3 years, something like that. Yeah, so and with that, at the start when Galway shocked us in Castlebar in 2016, we put it down to this is a one-off. Did it again in 2017. We're still looking for excuses. Then last year, you just have to hold your hand up and admit that Galway Galway have us. They just have a number on us, and there's like a serious hoodoo there that I'm pretty keen to put an end to. But that's it. Like Galway have figured out how to play against Mayo, and Mayo have shown no sign in any of their recent encounters of how to deal with it. So like coming into this weekend, it's not as if there's not enough evidence there of how Galway are going to play against you. They're not going to change. Why would they change? They're not going to change. And like these victories might have only been, 1 point or 2 points a lot of the time. But I remember being at them or watching them and thinking, oh, Galway have us here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even if Mayo got back, I fancy Galway to get those extra couple of points.
And they've tried different things against Galway. Like, I mean, in Castlebar under Rochford in his second year, they tried to go defensive and beat them in a stalemate and end up Johnny Heaney late goal to catch them out that day. It's just, whatever it is, Galway just have their number. And another thing, in those real stalemate games, Galway have Burke, Colm or Walsh who can get scores out of nothing.
Yeah,
Mayo
100%.
don't have that. Mayo don't really have that. Mayo kind of like a more of an open, disorganised game to
Big
be able
time,
to break through the lines, and then they're through and their half back line attacks. They don't seem to have when Dublin might play Tyrone and they're dropping in and they'll have two lads on the outside and Kilkenny will move it over and back, shift it. You never see Mayo playing like that. Mayo don't have the patience for that kind of stuff.
It's like it's too boring, yeah. But you're right. Last year, Ian Burke came on and completely changed the game in Castlebar, and that's absolutely it. They have Burke, they have Comer, they have Shane Welsh. Whereas Mayo's threat is likely to come from deeper, come from the half back line and come from midfield. But Galway have that sussed out, so that's what you need. Like that's what we did when completely defensive. But Mayo weren't used to that game plan. I know we used to change game plans under Rochford a lot, but they weren't used to that particular one. And like Galway were, comfortable is the wrong word. Like the game didn't change until Jim O'Connor got sent off and Ian Burke came on. But they're way more suited to playing that game than Mayo are. So if Mayo are going to, I don't think James Horan will be doing that this weekend. He'll have to come up with something a little bit different. But it won't be to match Galway and what they do. No, I don't think so.
No, definitely not. And even like Mayo, you're talking about leaving their defence open. Comer's back. I think Comer starts. Like, this is a do or die. This is the first knockout game between Mayo and Galway since 1999. This is a huge game. I can't see how they'd leave Comer on the bench. He's played club games at this stage. Physically he's back right. It wasn't a muscle injury, it was an impact injury. So like, I mean, once he's over that, somebody would have to stand on his foot exactly, and if the bone's healed or whatever, he has to start. So him and Burke will start inside with Shane Walsh out in front of him, you'd imagine. Now Shane Walsh, depending on who he's marking, will end up back in the defence, and he'll try to be the link man, a little bit like Roscommon. And that's a better front three than Roscommon's front three. Mayo left it wide open for them. You'd imagine Colin Boyle would try and cover that off to some extent, but they have to worry about Michael Daly, they have Johnny Heaney, Brannigan's back. Galway have a lot of ways. Cook could be back in midfield. Conroy's back.
Like on paper, I was trying to work out who's going to mark who. I suppose, like on paper, they're like the six forwards that are going to start for Galway. Like they're brilliant, but it's just the only thing that I'm thinking is they're not. Only a few of them are in form. I think
Heaney's not in form. Brannigan's not in form.
Michael Daly, I thought, was good against Roscommon. Yeah, Ian Burke was marked out of it, actually. First time I've ever seen Ian Burke being marked out of the game, and especially given the damage that he's done against Mayo in the past. But just on that, like I'm trying to think, because Lee Keegan would have been a perfect match for Shane Welsh. He's done it before. They've had good battles. Like Shane Welsh has done okay on him.
He has.
Like of all players to do well on Lee Keegan, Shane Welsh has done well.
Picks up Welsh now, right?
I'm that was my initial thought, but now I'm thinking somebody has to come in for Lee Keegan. I'm not sure who it's going to be, but
Vaughan will come in wing back, no?
I think he'll come in midfield. Instead of Mikey Murray and play alongside Aidan O'Shea. So if the other option is for Stephen Cohen to come in to do a man marking job on Shea Welsh, he can do it. He's not as good as Lee Keegan, obviously. No, not many people are. But that's I thought about maybe Durkin going on Shane Welsh, but now I'm kind of more. I think he's done it before, but I think what Shane Welsh should do with Paddy Durkin is bring him inside, frustrate him a little bit. Whereas if Stephen Cohen marks him, that's all he's there to do. He's not looking to get forward and kick points or anything like that. Yeah.
So did Barrett mark Comer the last time? I think he did surprisingly, because you would have thought Harrison was the man for him. So Harrison's hardly going to mark Burke then.
I think Harrison was injured when Mayo played Galway in not in the league in
the championship in
2018.
Yeah. Well then, okay.
Yeah, I think that's why. But Chris Barrett was kind of seen as the man for him anyway, because. Like Brendan Harrison's probably bigger than Chris Barrett, but Chris Barrett is more physical than Brendan Harrison. So I was thinking, looking at the next day, I thought he might actually take Ian Burke. But then if Damien Comer is in, and there's so many like Galway's forwards are physical as well, apart from Ian Burke, they're really big.
Do you think Comer's going to start?
I don't know how much club football he's played,
but like it that he has to start.
If he's involved, I'm thinking the same as you. Why not? Like, this is knockout. This is all or nothing. Like, why? why have regrets afterwards for only bringing him on for 20 minutes when you could have started him? So
Yeah.
I'd say that'd be the way. And then if you're worried about him potentially being injured, you run the risk of using a sub to bring him on, and then he gets injured, and then you have to use another sub to bring him off. So I would say he starts. Yeah,
that's the oldest one, isn't it? So like, I mean, you lose a sub by trying someone who's injured. But anyways, this is a broken bone. He's back right, you know. Like, I mean, that's it. He wouldn't be playing club if he wasn't back right. You know, Malloy is back as well, and he has to start wing back. He might add an extra dimension to Galway's play, because Galway, funnily enough, like, I mean, they've gone off everybody's radar. They were very good in the first half against Roscommon, and just surprising. They didn't seem to have any leaders or anything. Like, I mean, I think Flynn and O'Corrine are a disaster together. They've never done well for Galway when they're in midfield together, because I think the two of them are a little bit soft, and I don't think they have that combative nature. I think Cook was only back from injury. I think he'll start midfield. Duggan could be back. Conroy is back playing club. Galway have more options now. Like, I mean, McDade is back. Potential for the half back line. You know, like, I mean, geez, to be honest, I think Galway are in a much better position than Mayo. Like, I mean, everyone says coming through the qualifiers you have a momentum, but I think the injuries have offset Mayo's momentum.
Yeah.
I think they've taken the wind out of Mayo's sails. Like, when you look at who they've lost, O'Connor, Keegan, Doherty's a doubt. Diarmuid O'Connor's gone. Now, he didn't get injured during the qualifiers, but like, I mean,
Matty Ruan as well.
Ruan is gone as well. Like, I mean, Keegan's just such a kick in the arse for Mayo. Like, I mean, I see Mayo in the same position as they were coming up to Newbridge or Nowhere last year. I see them dead men walking, ready to be taken out.
I suppose the only thing is that Kildare had such momentum, you know, because of that Newbridge and Nowhere last year, whereas
Galway don't have that.
My hope for the weekend is that, like, Galway were very good in the first half against Roscommon. They were shocking in the second half against Roscommon. As you said, there's a lack of leaders there. I don't think Galway have been right this year yet at all.
No.
I think, like, the last couple of years they've actually been playing better. Now, I'd agree with you. I just think that, like, when we talk about Mayo having momentum through the qualifiers, there's elements of, like, relentless optimists in Mayo kind of clutching a little bit, saying that, like, we're looking for any reason possible for Mayo to be able to beat Galway. I still think we can, by the way, but if you're looking at it kind of realistically and more analytically, just like, if I was to pick one player that would not be missing for Mayo, it'd be Lee Keegan. And then after, like, Jason Doherty probably wouldn't be far behind. Diarmuid O'Connor, you know, these are absolutely massive players. Do you know what I mean? And Mayo, like, they have a strong enough squad, but they really can't afford to be losing lads like this. So, I'm pretty sure Lee Keegan is out. I'm not sure with Doherty, but it's hard to get away from that interpretation that we're dead men walking.
Yeah, no, like, I mean, I read a stat from Eamon Donoghue in the Irish Times today, and he said in the 7 wins in a row that Galway have had over Mayo, Galway have conceded just an average of 6 points from play. Like, I mean, and 12 points per match.
That really surprised me
total.
when you said it, yeah.
And that's league and championship. Like, these aren't, like, I mean, it's just incredible how they're able to restrict Mayo.
Yeah.
And they're getting in Mayo's faces. And, like, I mean, for the first 1 or 2 years, this really pissed Mayo off, because Mayo didn't respect Galway at all. And now suddenly they're in their faces, they're trash talking them, and they're frustrating them. I think Mayo will respect Galway now, but at the same time, they still find it very difficult to get through this really defensive system. And the fact that Galway, when they break, Comer, Burke or Walsh can do something special, where Mayo forwards struggle to do something special.
Yeah, like, if there's one thing for Mayo not to do against Galway the next day, get somebody sent off. I think in all the big games that Mayo played, did Colm Boyle get sent off? No, he did it. He slapped Shane Welsh in the face, I think, towards the end of the league, giving him a handy free. And then last year in the league, Killian got sent off. That's an interesting thing, actually. The next day, if Killian O'Connor plays, Owen Curran and himself have history. Killian got sent off for lashing out at him, and I think Diarmuid got sent off for lashing out at Owen Curran in the same game in the league. So he, as we know, he knows well how to get under people's skin.
Curran is a torture.
Mayo have to keep the discipline, because in big games particularly, but especially against Galway the last few years, lost men and kind of felt the impact. But it pains me to say that I can't disagree with what you're saying about the way that Galway set up. My only thing is that I think, depending on how fit Duggan is and depending on how fit Cook is, I think Galway can be got at in midfield. I think Aidan O'Shea is playing particularly well. He was only okay against Armagh, but he's had a really good season. So if there's a platform there, and even without Keegan, we're still strong enough around the middle eight, especially if we bring Kevin McLaughlin back from corner forward. He'll definitely start the next day after coming on.
You'd imagine McLaughlin's going to start in 13. You'd imagine he's going to drift, and you imagine Killian, O'Connor and Cohen are going to be left inside. Would that be right?
I think Andy will start as well.
You think Andy Moran
because
will start?
well, it depends on Jason Doherty. But if Jason Doherty isn't fit, what I would like to happen, whether it'll happen or not, is for Kevin McLaughlin to come out wing forward. So you have McDonough, Loftus and Kevin McLaughlin, and then you've Killian, Andy and Darren Cohen inside.
Right.
So
three men, you're playing three men
yeah,
inside.
well, like a variation.
None of them are drifting
no,
though, are they?
No, a variation of the three. So, well, that would require a lot of... Now, Theo McDonough and Kevin McLaughlin definitely are up for it, but a variation of the three inside. Unless he sticks with Kieran Tracy and then has either Andy or Killian to bring on, but no more than Damien Comer. If Killian's back now, what do you lose by starting?
O'Connor has to start. I'm thinking Moran might be no harm bringing him on as a sub.
Yeah.
Against those defensive systems in the first half, you're not going to get too much change anyway. And then he's under pressure. Am I going to get taken off again? You're living off kind of scraps. Whereas if you could come on, get a huge cheer from the crowd, you might. It might be less pressure. It might be less pressure on him.
Didn't work against Roscommon is the only thing.
Well, that's true. Although he has the ability in other games to actually come on, not definitely have a face on him, and try and affect it. Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. I thought your man Murray battled well the other day. I didn't think he was that bad at all.
No, you see, he was quite good. I think he had a couple of turnovers just before he came off. That game will bring him on. That game will bring him on a ton. That was his first competitive game for Mayo, and he did fine against a really physical Armagh team.
Yeah.
But that was the problem with Mayo had a ridiculous amount of turnovers on Saturday. I think he and Fionn McDonough, who had a great start to the game, and played well kind of throughout, but himself and Mikey Murray I thought were particularly culpable for bringing the ball into tackle, and it was pure kind of youthful enthusiasm. They saw a gap and they went for it, but Armagh were too streetwise, so
and you can't do that against Galway.
Absolutely can't do that against Galway. They'd be the worst team to do it against.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, so Shane Walsh I'm thinking is going to play in front of the two lads inside, but then again, considering Galway want to really pack that defence, you'd imagine Shane Walsh is going to be back plugging holes as well, and it's just going to be Comer and Burke left inside, potentially at times just Ian Burke on his own. Do you know what I mean? Because while I completely disagree with Galway playing that defensively, it does make sense to do it against Mayo because it has worked before. And we had a Sean Armstrong on the live show in Roscommon, and he was saying Ian Burke in training is constantly calling lads back to say, here, listen,
heard him say that,
which I thought was a great insight into how Galway set up. Galway, a lot of the time, don't necessarily want to bring that many men back behind the ball. We know defenders can drag you out of there even if you don't want to.
Yeah.
But I think Galway on this occasion probably will go back and put players into zones.
I think so, yeah. But you mentioned there, with Shane Welch coming back, if I'm a defensive team like that, I either want Shane Welch to be my first outlet for somebody to kick to, or you want him to be the ball carrier to carry it 40 or 50 yards and then get into position to be able to hit Comer and Burke if they're inside. But that, when you say about Ian Burke, Ian Burke is so good when he needs people around him to be as good as he is, because he's the best hands in he's the best hands of any forward that I know anyway. But just on that, then I think that because the way Galway is set up, it'll lend itself to Colm Boyle probably sweeping in front of the two of them. He did that really well the last day.
Yeah, no, he's well able to do that. The only thing is, is one enough when they break? Mayo need to be very smart on this counter-attack, because the counter-attack will come, and it'll come with Walsh, and it'll come with Brannigan, and it'll come with Michael Daly, and it'll come with these fellas, and Mayo need to be very, very sharp on that. Because that's what Galway are going to try and live off.
And when Armagh did it last day, I thought that once Armagh, Mayo did a high press, but once Armagh were able to get over that, and they did it quite frequently, Mayo were so open, and especially in the first half when Rory Guggen kind of was hanging around the 40, the amount of space in front of that, Mayo's full back line aren't playing particularly well at the moment, but they're not being helped. They the amount of space there, and they're being left one-on-one and isolated, but really good forwards.
That's the thing. But it was early in that game, right? So Grugan was flying it for the first quarter, because Armagh were dominating midfield and the ball was going long, so everyone's in position. Then Mayo started going short, and the game became broken, and Grugan wasn't getting the supply from midfield. So the midfield battle is massive. Lavelle isn't the best man at kicking out the ball in the world, so Mayo's press, I think a lot of these kickouts are going to go to midfield. So it's going to be like a traditional battle potentially in midfield, and the midfield battle from those kickouts when Galway are out of position, they're the set plays. They've become
true,
so important, haven't they?
Yeah, but Galway use a very traditional kind of tactic for goal kicks, and I haven't seen them. I always see them go to it. They literally just put a load of big men on one side of the
one
pitch,
wing, yeah,
like just right on the sideline, and then they cram it with bodies, and they use it all the time. It's like their go-to.
Yeah,
and they went to it particularly against Roscommon. I think Lavelle had a couple of poor ones. But
it's a weird tactic, because I was actually in Salt Hill for the Monaghan match, and I saw this firsthand. I was on the terrace right in front, so as the two midfielders went. And it's not even a midfielder, it's around the 45 at the wing.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, what's the tactic here? So the ball would float out, and then sometimes the two of them would jump together. I think the tactic is to win it there, and immediately there's a runner inside. So a minute hand pass goes in field and you're kind of away. Like that's
it's
what
very
they want
basic,
to do. It's very basic. It doesn't always work out. Like, I mean, I didn't see too much tactics around getting the break. It seemed to be around the midfield. Tom Flynn winning it, then giving it inside, and somebody's away then.
Yeah. And actually, what disappointed me about Mayo against Armagh was I thought we were quite poor in the breaks, and Mayo are normally very good in the breaks. Jason Doherty can be really good at picking them up, and the half backs as well. But I thought Armagh dominated that, especially as you say, in the first 20 minutes when they had that platform to give Rory Grugan the ball and load of space inside. So I'd imagine that'll be look. James Horan will be focusing on that particularly this week, and that's just another reason for me to bring Kevin McLaughlin out as opposed to playing him inside, because I think he's really good at picking up loose ball too.
Yeah, no, I think that's the role for him anyways, and especially against Galway, you really want just finishers in there against Galway where they could come on a loop, and Cohn and O'Connor can both come on a loop. They're the type of finishers you wanted, because ball winners aren't going to get the quick passes. So
exactly.
Moran and McLaughlin aren't really your men. It's loop and finishes, which Cohn and O'Connor are. So there's a positive for you, Conor, before we finish.
Thanks. I needed at least one.
All right, we'll come back with Paddy Power predictions. Paddy Power predictions. So will we just get the Galway Mayo prediction out the way? Galway are 6-5 according to Paddy Power, and Mayo are 10-11, slight favourites. I'm going for a Galway win here, Conor. I know you're not going to agree with me.
I can't despite all my negativity before. I'm just they have it in them. I'm just hoping for a massive performance. We're like Galway are owed one. I think if we win it, like in typical Mayo style, we'll crawl over the line. So I'll give it to us by a point.
Yeah, okay. Listen, the other game, next game I want to look at is Cork and Laois. Cork are 8-15, very strong favourites against Laois, who are 21-10. Laois have that great momentum. Obviously, Cork have a little bit of momentum themselves, even though they lost.
Strange form of momentum. Yeah.
It's a weird one. Like, I mean, redeemed themselves, have a bit of respect after the Munster final. I still don't think they're 2-1, or they're 1-2 favourites, and Laois are 2-1 outsiders. I think these are actually two very evenly matched teams.
I know I'd be giving a slighter edge to Cork, but again I think that the 2-1 is very generous, and then you have to weigh up like how good were Kerry in that game against Cork. I mean, like they played in patches, but definitely not up to their best. But I do think Cork will, as I said, it's a strange form of momentum, but like I think they will be feeling good about themselves after the Kerry game, and I think they'll be able to bring that. Again, I do think the odds are too generous, but I would be fancying Cork.
Yeah, so the Cork have made two changes. Thomas Clancy and Kevin O'Driscoll have come in place of Tom Clancy and Paul Kerrigan. Paul Kerrigan struggled throughout that Munster final. Like, I mean, to be honest, he looks like he's carrying a bit of weight. He definitely doesn't look as fit as he used to be now. He's into his 30s. So, like, I mean, this is the thing. I think that obviously Cork's full forward line might be their strongest line on the field. Luke Connolly, Brian Hurley, Mark Collins. That's where Laois are going to be under pressure. Stephen Atroyd will box off on Hurley, I'm sure. He'd be physical matchup for him. Garrett Dillon on Collins, and Dennis Booth will probably pick up Luke Connolly. If they can kind of break even with those lads, you imagine Robbie Piggott, who's a bit of a dogger, he'll take up Rory Dean, who's a bit of has a great bit of fire in his belly. Expect absolute fireworks between Robbie Piggott and Rory Dean, because they're both that type of player that Piggott won't leave him alone and Dean won't stand for it, basically, is how that's
Dean
going
just
to go.
Doesn't stop, basically. He's a great bit of stuff.
He's an outstanding bit of stuff. I think he'd get on any team in the country. I still think that Cork's full-back line could struggle with Colin Murphy, with Tony Kingston, with Paul Kingston. This is why I kind of think, I look down through both teams. Like, I think Laois have a slight edge in midfield. Ian Maguire, Cillian O'Hanlon obviously likes to bomb forward, but so does John O'Loughlin, and Kieran Lillis is as solid as to come. He'll probably box off on Ian Maguire, and O'Loughlin will have have one of these old "I go forward, you go forward" potentially battles with O'Hanlon. I do think that I maybe agree with you and say that Cork could have a slight edge. But at the same time, there's definitely not going to be too much in it. And I think it was Mark White, the Cork goalkeeper, saying, looking at Laois, we've identified their point-taking ability from long range. They have the Kingston brothers inside, and their backline is well able to carry ball as well. Well, Donny Kingston has been playing outside, but I suppose he can drift in. Colin Murphy's been playing very well. He's been playing very well inside. So, Paul Kingston, Colm Murphy, depends whether Ross Money plays or not. Maybe it's a game to bring back in Evan O'Carroll. He
doesn't seem keen on playing playing himself.
Two of them, no. He
together,
played the two of them against Derry, and now it's Evan O'Carroll who seems to be losing out. So
he kicked a couple of points when he came on, didn't he, against Offaly? I think Evan O'Carroll, did he?
Evan O'Carroll, two late points, yeah. So his attitude has been very good despite the fact being dropped. Donny Kingston's attitude has been very good after being dropped as well, which John Sugrue deserves an awful lot of credit. This is a manager a rookie manager who took over Laois, who had been relegated to Division 4, an ageing squad, backbone by the 03 minors, who are fecking well into their 30s at this stage, and he's got to the last 12 the last 2 years, which is a huge achievement for it to bring a Division 4 team to the last 12. They performed really well against Monaghan last year, and I expect them to perform really well against Cork this weekend. And he's got them from Division 4 to Division 2. It shouldn't be underestimated. And he's brought new players into the squad. The whole backline: Trevor Collins, Robbie Piggott, and Young O'Sullivan. They're all new. Garrett Dillon is new. He's bringing in new players, Martin Scully is new, Colin Murphy's new. He's re-energised the whole squad.
Turnover too, yeah.
He's picking the Laois team not on reputations, not on past glories. He's picking them on form in training and attitude. And the whole atmosphere around that camp is a positive one. And they respect Sugrue. They fear him a little bit. He can be a tick. So and so when he wants to be, but managers are like that, and he commands respect. And I definitely shouldn't be underestimated how well he's done. I wouldn't be surprised in any way if Laois beat Cork. I wouldn't be surprised. And I do agree with you. You'd be leaning towards Cork.
Were you not saying that you would not fear for Laois if they got to the Super 8s, but would it be the right stage for their development at this stage to be exposed to those sorts of teams where they might, not to say that they would, but they might say Roscommon last year be exposed to a couple
that's the fear.
Yeah.
But then again, you can't have that attitude either.
100%.
You're better off get into it, get hammered, and this is the gas thing. And you see quotes from Enda Smith this week, and he's learned from last year.
Yeah, of course.
So if you don't get into it, you're not going to learn.
Yeah,
so you might take hammerings, but then you'd be like, should we change things up? Should we be more flexible tactically?
Yeah.
Was our strength and conditioning up to scratch? It didn't look like it was. Let's do something different there. Let's change our strength. You don't learn unless you play the top teams.
You have to ask questions yourself you wouldn't ask otherwise.
Exactly.
If you weren't there.
Exactly. If you just live in Division 3 and 4, you're never going to, and that's the big thing even in the hurling, where a lot of the Joe McDonough teams, they're good at that level, but they'll never know until they play the big teams where they're actually at in the bigger scheme of things. Even a hammer, I think you learn from a hammering, and that's it. So we'll get predictions. You fancy Cork in this one?
Close win, yeah. I'd say less than 3. But I'd go for Cork.
I'll go slightly. Listen, I think this is a 50-50. I wouldn't be one bit surprised if Laois won it. So that's what I said before Derry, and I went for Laois. So I'll go for Laois. I'll go for Laois again. Cavan and Tyrone is on 5 o'clock. Sky have done very well. They've got the Cavan, Tyrone, Mayo, Galway double header, and RT, who are left with Meath Clare on the Sunday, which I'm sure they're not too happy with. So Cavan and Tyrone. Cavan are 3-10 according to Paddy Power. Tyrone 7-2. Handicap here is 4, and that's what I'm looking at in this. I fancy Tyrone very, very strongly.
To beat that handicap? Big time, yeah.
To win it and even to beat the 4.
Yeah, I think they'll beat the 4 too. I think they just have the momentum. Tyrone are a brilliant qualifier team. I didn't realise until I was just checking. Cara O'Kane actually did a really good piece in the Irish News about Tyrone kind of going back to their original style. But 10 wins from 10 qualifiers since 2015, and some of the scores that they rack up, they had a 5-18, 4-24, 3-20, 2-22 last weekend. No team apart from Dublin is better at steamrolling teams that are inferior to them than Tyrone. It's only when they come up against the really top teams that they begin to struggle.
I think Tyrone's strength and conditioning is way ahead of lower level teams, and they physically blow them away. You saw Matty Donnelly just brushing past Kildare players like they weren't
easily,
there.
Yeah. And I think Cavan had a decent year, some great performances against Armagh. I think Donegal probably showed them up to the level where they are. And I think, I'd agree with you, I think Tyrone by more than 4.
Yeah, because that was a 4-point hammering against Donegal, let's be honest. There was a late goal included in that as well. Niall Morgan got 20 kickouts against Kildare and he won 19 of them. I think he won all 9 in the first half and won 10 out of 11 in the second half. So Cavan are going to have to do something like that. He's so fast back out and he's putting them everywhere. He's going short to the centre back. He's going now. Kildare's intensity was pretty much bordering on disgraceful in that game.
It was,
You know, it just was. They never got hands on. Like Keane O'Neill said, they died with their boots on. I didn't see evidence of that in a lot of their play. You know, like I mean, they just kind of, it was just so easy for Tyrone. Surely Cavan will be up for it a bit more than that. The analysis from Cavan after the Donegal game on this show was that Cavan were a little bit conservative. They played Smith as a corner forward, brought him back and played 5 forwards, and they hadn't been doing that. So it'll be interesting to see how Mickey Graham approaches this one. I think they should just go for this one, and like I mean, they have good players and they can put it up to Tyrone. But you won't beat Tyrone just trying to contain them. Like you'll never beat any team trying to contain them. Like the attitude has to change. While you obviously have to be concerned about the opposition, you should focus really pretty much on your own game. Now there's 1 or 2 players from the opposition has to be shut down, but don't change the way you've been playing well all year just for somebody else.
Yeah, but Cavan regretted that their approach nearly immediately in the Ulster final. And I think that they scored 2-11 in the second half, and I think that's a misnomer because Donegal eased off towards the end. As you said, it was a 4-point hammer, and I'm not saying that the change in approach was directly responsible for that tally, let's say, but they were far better when they went back to a more kind of attacking approach than they had adopted earlier on. I think they'll do that again. Be wary of getting sucked in by Tyrone. That's what Tyrone do really well is just, as you said, they're so physical. They butt the bodies back there, they eat them alive, and then they break in the counter attack. So Cavan have to stop that from happening.
They do. And I like tactical rabbits out of a hat. There's no one likes that, but I'm not going to sacrifice a forward when my forward unit probably needed the extra bodies. You know, and you can't, the tactical switch you make can't change your game plan all that much, or can't mess your forward line up that much. So I think that potentially was a mistake. But surprising the opposition with tactics, it's hard to be critical of Mickey Graham because he tried something.
Of course,
it didn't work and he changed it at half time. When our manager's going to surprise the opposition with something offensive instead of the defensive one, that's probably the issue I have with it.
Yeah, same as.
So what do you fancy here?
Tyrone by more than 4.
Yeah, I go Tyrone by more than 4 as well. Probably in the last 15 minutes, where they'll pull away. So what have we got left? Meath and Clare in O'Moore Park. I'm going to this one. So I'm going to the Gaelic grounds and I'm going to O'Moore Park. And I'm going to watch Meath Clare and I'm going to watch Laois beat Dublin in the hurling, and I'm going to land in here in great form on Monday. So this is a funny one, right? So let's go on the stats. Clare have only beaten Meath once in their history. This is a bogey team for Clare. So the last three years of the league, Meath hammered them 319 to 113 in Ennis. Then they hammered them 21 points to 7 in Navan. And then in the league this year they beat them 112 to 17 down in Ennis. And like I said, they've only ever beaten Meath once in their history. Now, some other stats to give you something on to be positive from the Clare side. Since the qualifiers were introduced by the GAA in 2001, in 18 years since, only 4 Leinster counties have managed to recover from losing a provincial final and win their game in the qualifiers. So I don't know what way to look at this. Obviously, Leinster counties haven't been massively strong recent years, so that statistic might not be
coming off hammerings from Dublin,
off being destroyed by Dublin.
A lot of the time.
If you look at Laois last year, they were beaten by Dublin, hammered, and then Drew Monaghan. So that's not very fair to say. They're draw. This is a favourable draw for Meath in that they've come off a hammering, and it's a game that they're capable of winning, if you know what I mean. It's not a Tyrone. If it was a Tyrone, you're giving Meath no chance.
And it's the best draw they could have got, and to be fair to Meath, although they were pretty terrible at times against Dublin, there were elements of it that I think they can use as a positive. Their shooting was terrible, but at least they were able to shoot against Dublin, whereas a lot of teams just don't get the chances in the first place. In the first half,
their defending was excellent.
I thought the first half their full back line was textbook stuff. The name of the full back escapes me briefly. McGill. He was brilliant in the first 10 or 15 minutes, and there was ball raining down on him as well, and he had the beating. I think it was Cormac Costello. So there was a lot. There was a lot of positives in as many positives you can take when you're beaten by 117 to 4 points. But I think I hadn't known that stat about Clare having such a terrible record against Meath. I would have fancied them anyway. But the fact that they seem to have their number just kind of backs that up a bit more.
You'd have fancied Meath anyways,
I
right?
think so, yeah.
Meath are 8 to 15, the same betting as Laois and Cork. Clare 21 to 10, which has to be said, it's a fantastic price on Clare.
I thought that too.
Because for me, this is a 50-50 game. I'm going to go for a draw here. I'm going to sit on the fence. I think we haven't had one go to extra time yet, have we?
Oh, surely we'll get one this week. If I was to back one, it'd be Mayo Galway. But no, I don't think we...
I think Meath and Clare will be the one that goes to extra time. I think that's fair. I think in my Paddy Power accumulator, I went Clare +2. So fancy with 2 points, Clare should be. I think this one will go right down to the wire. Meath and Clare, it'll be a really close game.
That on the handicap, actually, that's I fancy Meath narrowly, but I think those odds are very generous for are a bit harsh on Clare.
They are
outside of 2 to 1.
Yeah,
and the handicap is 2 points.
The handicap is 2 points.
Yeah. That I'd be looking at that, but Meath to just come out on top. Extra time isn't a bad shout, actually. Maybe even penalties.
Wouldn't that be fantastic? Especially because I'll be at it. Right, Conor, we'll leave it there. We'll be back on Monday as usual. You won't be here. Well, listen, you might come in as
hopefully
a special occasion.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back on Monday as usual. Maddie Ford is in with us on Monday. Miss and Conan will be back. We'll talk to you then. Good luck.